On this episode of the Splendid Sports Podcast, how Card Crusade is revolutionizing the sports cards group breaking experience. You know what happens when something surges in popularity like the sports card industry has recently? Well, yes, prices do rise, but the best thing in my view is that new business opportunities are created. When I started doing this podcast, one of the first episodes I put out was called "The Sports Card Industry is Alive." Because when I zoomed back into the sports card hobby at the beginning of the year, it was the skyrocketing card prices that caught my attention. But what I actually found to be the most interesting part of what was going on was all the innovation and new ventures popping up in the sports card industry. I've always had a love for sports cards for the last 30 years or so, but I have to say, to me, it was a pretty stagnant industry for a while before this recent resurgence. If you've listened to this podcast before, you can probably tell that I love the business side of the sports card hobby. And on this episode, I was able to talk with three guys who grew up together in New York and, like me, have had a passion for the sports card hobby since they were kids. And about those opportunities that I mentioned a minute ago, well, they saw one and decided to take action this year and form Card Crusade, which, simply put, is a platform that solves the problems that they see in group breaking for both the buyer and the breaker. I've said enough for now. Let's get to the interview. We got Tommy, Justin, and Mark, who you guys, three guys are the founders of Card Crusade. I'm a longtime card collector, but I've actually never been involved in a break. I know what they are. Okay. I've always loved the concept. I understand the popularity. Maybe I'm a little older than the average person who does breaks. I'm 40 now. I know it's, not just for young people, but would you say that breaking is, at least right now, is that more of a thing that people in their teens, 20s, 30s do rather than the older generations?
Yeah. That's definitely something we've noticed, and we're relatively young. We're all mid-20s. And we actually started the same way as you, collecting since we're children. And then we just kind of discovered group breaks and realized it's a really cool way to kind of chase the teams and players you like at a discounted price. And as we kind of got more involved into the group breaking community, we did realize it appeals much more to that younger generation of collectors, which is kind of cool because we see, these younger kids getting involved right into collecting through group breaks. So it is also nice to see that too.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've never done it, but I've always thought it was really cool. And that's not to say I wouldn't, it's just a matter of just never pulled the trigger. But yeah. I've watched a few on YouTube and that were recorded. And I think it's just anything that can make the hobby more entertaining, more of a game and I like to do a little sports betting myself. So I think there's a element of that in there too, where it's a little bit of a gamble. So I really like that. But now I wanted to ask you guys, who came up with the name? Was it a group thing? I love your name, Card Crusade. I think it's really really catchy.
Nice. Well, Mark.
I think it was Mark. I think it was Mark that came up with it.
Definitely was.
How did you get the domain? Was that hard to secure, or is that something you've owned for a long time?
We actually secured it. So we, in the early days, we bounced around a couple different names, and I think Mark, brought up Card Crusade, and we were like, what, we really like that. Let's check the domain. The domain was open and available, and we were like, what, even if we don't use that name, let's just at least get the domain. And then, we ended up using it.
Yeah, see, I'm a website guy, so I always look at things from that end of it. Like, hey, that's a great name, and I'm surprised that domain was available. So I always like to ask that.
Yeah. We were shocked at first too. We saw it available, and it was like, I want to say $3 to $5. And like Justin said, we're like, hey, we may not use it, but we just locked it in anyway. And we were bouncing around like 20 different names for the company. And then Mark really pushed for Card Crusade because he did think of it, and we started to kind of fall in love with the name. And here we are, Card Crusade. Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, just to get background on what that name means, right? We really just wanted to change. We wanted to be a part of that change in the hobby as everything moves more digital. And, we believe in the future it'll move off Instagram and you'll have all these different platforms. And Card Crusade, join the crusade. That's what we use a lot as kind of a slogan. Is just joining that change in the hobby and
The
making
revolution.
it better.
Yeah.
I love it. So and so like again, I'm not your typical guy who knows everything about breaking, which I think is good because people that listen might be in my spot. How is it being done for the most part now? Is it just mainly like companies go on YouTube and Instagram and they do breaks?
So great question. And that's kind of what we got this idea to focus in on group breaking, are the pain points associated with the way it's done now. So just briefly, our vision started kind of as like a full scale social market platform, like kind of like eBay meets Instagram. So people in the hobby would be able to talk about their favorite cards or favorite teams, while sharing some of their biggest pulls, but also having buying capabilities like you do have on eBay. But Tom actually came to us one day and he's like, "Hey guys, like, why don't we focus in on like one aspect of the community, because we're not going to take out a big player like eBay right off the bat, and that's group breaking." But the problem is right now, group breaking has very limited access, and where you can access it, it's very convoluted and messy. So on Instagram right now and eBay and YouTube, I would say those are the three primary channels that people are using for group breaking. But it's kind of a mess in the sense that people on Instagram are asking people, "What's your Venmo or your Cash App?" Then breakers are having to chase people down for their addresses, and their live streams aren't really. There's like a lag time on Instagram's live stream, so like there's all these different things that we could get into. All the features that we built out on our platform that really target the pain points on these media outlets that are providing group breaking without Card Crusade.
And honestly, guys, the more I think of it, I think part of the reason why I've never done a break is because, like, again, I'm old, so like I'm like, "Hey, that's cool. I would like to do that." And then I spend like 2 seconds trying to figure, and then I'm like, "Oh, whatever. I'll do something else." You know what I mean? But if you can make it easy and simple, like for older people like me, I think you get a lot of us that get into it more. And I'm sure that's part of the idea.
Yeah, and I think what you like. Let's just use a example. Like, what's a product that you really love to collect?
Anything with Tom Brady in it, right? So like whatever because I collect Mickey Mantle stuff, Larry Bird, and Tom Brady. Those are my three, I guess you'd call like super collecting guys that go after.
Yeah. I mean, like a great example of how what the real value in our platform is really on the buyer side. If you wanted to say go into an absolute break, right? You would have to go into several, maybe even dozens of different live streams, hoping that the live stream you go into is breaking absolute. There's no way to search specifically for absolute breaks on Instagram, right? You're just hoping the breaker you stumble on is breaking it. And that's, what makes it really difficult, because you're right. Like, group breaking is kind of a gamble, but it truly is a way to collect the teams you love and the players at a discount instead of buying the whole box. So if you're looking for that specific product on our app, you can filter by sport, you can search for products, you can filter by price. You can even filter by pick your teams or random teams. So we just, we give the buyer all those different options to make it 10 times easier to find what they're looking for.
I went to your website and I was like, "Hey, this is a really nice website." I took a look around, but then when I actually downloaded the app, it became so clear. I was like, "Oh, I totally get it now." It's in a way, it's a search engine. It's a search engine for breaks, which really, like you said, takes so many steps out of it and a lot of the legwork to find exactly what you're looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And to kind of add to what Mark and Justin were saying, everything they described. They described it as Instagram it's a social media platform. It's really inefficient for group breaks, and it's essentially what we're doing. We want to become that one-stop shop for group breaks and kind of streamline that process for buyers and breakers. And luckily we're not breakers. It is a lot of work to do, and so we can kind of tackle the pain points on the buyer side But when it came to learning about how breakers break, we really sat down with dozens of breakers and kind of really took in all this information about the troubles they go through and then integrated that on the app to make it even easier for them when listing a break.
Are you the only one of your kind right now?
So it seems like we're the only one that focuses primarily on group breaks. Where we've seen Whatnot is absolutely killing it with live auctions.
Right.
Loop is really focusing on live breaks. We also saw another company, they kind of launched the same time of us, is Breakers, and they're also focusing on group breaks too. It's pretty cool. Seems like they provide some really useful tools. But we're the only ones, it seems, right now with kind of these features to really simplify group breaks, an in-app live stream, a randomizer in the live, which is pretty cool. So right now, it seems like there's only two actually for group breaks, just us and Breakers.
Even if there's competition or you're the only one in this space, you're likely to have competition at some point anyway. So really, it's just a matter of how you execute it. So I think, I wanted to ask you guys on that end, but there's three of you. Are you guys full timers into this, or do you have still kept your jobs and you're starting this on the side type thing?
Yeah, we're all still we have jobs full time, but it really is the goal for us to go full time on this. This is when you're a kid and you're trying to figure out what you want to do when you grow up. Pretty sure everyone always says do something you enjoy because then it doesn't feel like work. And this is truly a passion for us. I mean, it's built by collectors for collectors, right? So we would love to go full time. That's our plan. But right now, we do have families and, grown up responsibilities. But yeah, so we do have full time jobs.
And just to add to that, I mean, our full time jobs definitely don't limit us with the amount of work we're putting into this, right? Yes, during the day, I guess it is limiting, but we are all coming home from work and, essentially working a full second job full time, and really trying to get this off the ground. And we do understand that, it's going to get to a point where in order to take that next step to making it full time, there's not going to be an overlap from where we could leave our day jobs and get this to that point. So, we are prepared. We are stacking some cash on the side and, enough that'll help us fund this as we start to raise money. And as we get there, we're definitely ready to take that step.
So how does it work? So if, let's say I own a breaking company, and what would be your pitch to me? Whereas right now I'm doing it on YouTube, I'm doing it on Instagram, maybe on my website, but it's not a highly trafficked website. What would be the pitch to me as a breaking company to say, hey, you should join us?
Yeah. So, most of the breakers we reach out to come break on the app, we're actually Instagram breakers. But for example, most of the guys who break on YouTube, they list their breaks on eBay, hope they get the bids up to that price so they make a profit. And then eBay also takes 14%, which is really rough. And then they have to break on YouTube. But most of the breakers we targeted were on Instagram, whereas they had to spend time kind of writing out all these teams and prices, posting that break as a picture. Then people comment to claim spots. You have to wait for it to get filled. Like Mark said earlier, you're chasing down people for their Cash App and Venmo, collecting payments. Then after the break runs, if there's 30 spots, you have to collect 30 addresses and input that into their label printer and then ship it. So the best thing we could do is we have auto-populated teams. When listing a break on the app, it takes about 2 minutes. So it's just limiting that time to even list a break. And then we have in-app payments, which are protected. Once they pay, it goes into their account through the app. Break is done, and they can kind of request a payout. Really simple. And then, again, when the shipping part, we actually have pre-populated shipping labels from when they purchase a spot. So if I was to buy a spot from Mark, as soon as he gets that purchase come through on his end, he can go into his purchases, his sales and shipping, and see the shipping label and just print it out. So we're really effectively streamlining that whole process and making it much easier for breakers on their end too.
That makes total sense to me. Yeah, I mean that's a ton of value that you're adding to, and not to mention as your brand grows, it's going to get a lot more eyeballs on that breaking company than it would have just on their own. Trying to patch together all these different platforms.
Yeah, and that was another pinpoint that we said when we're trying to, literally sell this to the breakers too, because we are a new platform and we understand that most of their following was built up through Instagram. Their customers are through Instagram, and we don't want to fully take that away. So the way we vision it is we bring on maybe a couple breakers, their followers come, say they bring about 100 each, and then they see breaks from other breakers, which kind of they coexist, and then these breakers bring in new customers from the other ones who are also on the app. So that's kind of the goal with that too.
How does the prices of sports cards as the market, like obviously over the last several months, the prices overall have declined. Does that benefit the breaking companies? Meaning they can get product at lower prices, or is it better for them when prices are like they were in February where they're like sky high? But then I would imagine it's harder for them to get product, right? If it's more expensive. How does that work?
For sure. Yeah. So it's kind of like a chicken and an egg kind of thing, right? Like supply and demand, right? And for us as a breaking platform, we kind of have to grow supply and demand simultaneously so that there are not too many buyers looking for things to buy, and there are not too many sellers that are just like, no one's buying my stuff. I don't want to do this anymore, right? But obviously with fluctuation, there's different pros and cons, right? If product is cheaper, we find that breakers are breaking more often because they could get their hands on more stuff, right? But at the same time, with product being cheaper, there are times that, even the resale market is attainable for people that just want to buy and rip a box on their own. So, there is definitely a correlation with, kind of, volume of breaks and how many people are buying into them with the price and the varying degree of, wax prices within the market. But, we feel like this is more about people's passion to just be a part of the breaking within the hobby and the excitement. And like you said before, it gets that sense of the same, excitement you get maybe when it comes to gambling or taking a chance on something that, you didn't really call out, or, you didn't assume to pull from a box that day, that people get in these big time boxes that breakers are ripping. So, there is a correlation, but I think that people in the hobby like the fact that they could buy a portion of some more expensive products like, National Treasures or Impeccable, but, or Immaculate, sorry. But, it goes up and down.
I like vintage. I even like cards from the, 80s, 90s, because that was my era. Is there any, I know a lot of the breaking companies do more ultra modern stuff, which makes total sense. But do you see any expansion, or do you see specialty companies that might be joining that break vintage, or that break even maybe junk wax era stuff, but that's harder to find, obviously?
Yeah, I think, it's definitely tougher when you talk about breaking products from, whether it's 10 years ago, 20 years ago, just because it's all about what's out there, right? If they make 1,000 boxes and 900 of them have already been opened, it's difficult and it's really expensive to get those last 100 boxes. So I don't, just at least my opinion, I don't know if we'll ever see, a dedicated breaking platform or breaker that's like, I'm only going to break vintage wax. But I would love it personally. I think that would be awesome. I would definitely be excited to see something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect to see any 1988 tops or anything like that.
Yeah, but it would definitely be cool because we don't want to limit our target audience, and it's definitely something in our sites. Maybe have a special event, because there are breakers out there that like to target these more vintage boxes and run these special breaks once in a while. So it's absolutely in our sites. I saw Nat Turner. He just ripped a 96 Topps Chrome with Ken Golden, and that's absolutely awesome. And then he pulled a Kobe rookie out of it. So it's just the chances like that, and it brings in maybe collectors who are more into the vintage stuff rather than the modern. So I think it'll be an awesome experience to kind of get something like that going on the app.
Yeah, I just see it, it's like you said, it's entertainment. Even if you don't get anything in a break that's of value or whatever, it's more of just a communal experience in these times where people are isolated. If you can participate in a break with, maybe you can do it with some of the people you know, friends, stuff like that through the platform. I just see a lot of different directions you can go with it. So that's why I love the idea, because I think it's just, it adds that entertainment value that I think can be lacking in part of the hobby, where it's more of a kind of a solitary type of thing that doesn't have to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And the best part about it too is, if someone's live on the app, you don't have to buy into the break. You can just join and watch, and like you said, kind of get that community feeling while you're at home and watch kind of the show, really, because it is live entertainment at the end of the day. And these guys really put on a show to some of the cards they pull, and it's an awesome experience.
I wanted to add to that, with the entertainment aspect of it, it definitely, we talk about it all the time, is how could we inspire the younger generation or people that are just looking in on this hobby? Like, I want to get involved, but I'm not really sure it's for me, or I don't have that real excitement out of the gate. This is kind of one of those things that, we say entertainment, it provides that excitement that, there are people that are just like, okay, now I get to understand some of these products that these people are breaking can have cards that are worth $150,000, $250,000, $250,000 after they're graded. So, when people pull things like that, it's definitely, even if you're not into the hobby, it could definitely get you started, so it's like, we constantly say, let's inspire the youth, and what are things that we could do to help grow this and continue the growth of the hobby. And we definitely think breaking is part of that.
I agree. I think it's, again, as someone who's never actually been in one to just watch them, I think that it's a huge factor. And, everyone says they want to grow the hobby and get new people into it or people back into it. I really think that apps like yours can be a huge part of that. People can get back involved with the hobby without spending a ton of money at first, right? They can get that experience, and then who knows where it goes from there once they start, like you said, seeing the different boxes and the products and people hitting big cards. Then it's just, I think, going to spiral into all different areas of the hobby.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
All right, so last question. I wanted to know, do you guys, what are the plans for like marketing to getting your name out there even more in 2022? Are you going to, maybe you do now, do you go to card shows, or what are you doing for marketing?
Yeah, so one of the main things is just kind of general networking. We love your show. That's kind of one of the reasons why we reached out, and kind of getting exposure like this. Like you said, card shows. We were at the Dallas card show after we launched. Mark and I, we were in New York, so we got the chance to visit the Westchester card show at the Marriott in Tarrytown. And then really we're going to tackle a lot of the card shows, kind of put a face to the brand. Because right now people know us through Instagram. They just see our logo, see our name. But it is great to get out there, interact with people in the hobby, talk a bit about the app, what they're doing. And then obviously, Nationals coming up. We're definitely going to be there too. It's a huge event. We've actually never been there before, so we're really, really excited to that. And, these are the things we're looking to grow, the platform. And right now, we are only on the App Store, which is tough because it kind of limits almost half our crowd and kind of the breakers following who buy into their breaks. So we have some open items that we're going to use to update the app. And once we're finished with that, should be pretty soon, we're going to start moving to Android, which would absolutely help us expand into the collecting community as well.
Perfect. Yeah, I have an iPhone, so I was able to download it. Nice. It's an awesome app. I mean, very intuitive, and you can find everything you're looking for. Like you said, there's all these filters that you can search by. So great. It's a great app. It would be awesome too when it rolls out on Android and you get that other half of the population that can get it too, or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks again for coming on. And like you said earlier, we can definitely do this again. I'd love to catch back up with you guys maybe in a few months and get an update on where things are at.
Yeah, definitely. And, we appreciate you having us on. It really means a lot.
Yeah. As an early company like this, it means a lot for you guys to kind of bring us on the show. And we really do appreciate that. And we'll absolutely stay in touch, man.
All right. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks so much.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.
Okay. So I think they use the term pain points at least a couple times in our conversation. I think that's a great way to describe what Tom, Mark, and Justin see as business opportunities. They see the group breaking experience currently as it's being done as a messy one on both sides. And the Card Crusade app is designed to streamline that process for both ends of it, making the group breaking experience a better one all around through their one-stop shop platform. Look, I'm clearly not a group breaking expert or anything like that, but I have downloaded the app, and man, it looks really good. And after that conversation, I think they have a great plan to innovate that group breaking space that they're in, which ultimately will benefit the sports card hobby as a whole, making it more enjoyable, easier for new people to get involved. So I think it's a win-win all around, and I'm really looking forward to catching up with them in 2022 and seeing where things are at. Thanks again to Tom, Mark, and Justin for joining me, and go download the Card Crusade app now.